Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Special guest up, Elizabeth, Shara. We have a very special talk about loss. Everyone has a love story. Here she is. No. Wait, first though, I hate that it cuts off because I'm wearing a very special shirt for both of us. I'm just gonna isn't this so fabulous?
Okay, what? It's backwards.
Dang it. So
Dang it.
my mom was everything and then some.
Oh,
My friend Disha, shout out to Disha, sent me this, and I mean, literally, it just came today, and I was like, "This is the most perfect shirt." So, of course, it's
oh,
backwards, and I didn't even think about that, but
but I love it. That is so good. That is so
isn't it
good.
so fun? I think it's like perfect for talk about loss.
It is, especially today.
Yeah. How are you, my friend?
I'm so good. I have a lot
Good.
of emotions today.
Well, then I'm so glad you're in the hot seat.
It's a lot harder being in this seat.
Right?
It
I
is.
know we're gonna have to like shift it around. But hi, everybody who's joining us. We're so excited you're stopping by on your Sunday. This is Talk About Loss. Everyone has a love story, and we're doing something different. We those of you that have joined us before have seen that we have had a special guest each Sunday, and that guest has shared about their love story through loss. But this Sunday we decided to have our very own Elizabeth Shara, co-founder of Talk About Loss, because I think it's really important. I do think it's important as we build up this community and this platform that people know your story. That I think that people know that you show up every week and we do this work every day because it comes from a very personal, real place. So I'm
That's
going to stop talking and welcome our special guest, who I'm the lucky one, my dear friend
Oh,
and co-founder and partner, Elizabeth Shara.
you make me cry. Oh, thank you, Kate. It's definitely different being on this side. But it's actually perfect. I was just talking to Colin and just saying, this is why we started Talk About Loss, because real stuff comes up. It doesn't matter if it's 25, 35, 40 years past the loss, the stuff still comes up and real feelings come up. And sometimes I need to stop and just go back to the basics.
Mm.
And I had to hold on to Colin and to my son Logan today and just say, I'm having some really big feelings coming up. Tomorrow's Jack's birthday. He would have been 16.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to not get ahead of the story in your conversation. But I think it's, I was thinking today, we're going to talk about your mom
Yeah.
losing her at 15 when you were 15 years old. And I want to talk about Jack. But one thing I never realized was that Logan and Jack were born so close together, just a couple of days, right? And
Yeah.
of course, if you're just joining us, Elizabeth is going to share her story of loss with us today. A big part of her story is losing her son, Jack, who we just found out would be his 16th birthday. But you do have this blessing that is Logan, and Logan just turned 15.
Right.
So let's start there because 15 is an important number for you.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk a little bit about losing your mom when you were 15
Right.
years old and tell us about that.
So my mom was sick for 9 years. And I sat back last night and knowing we were going to talk about her and thought about, what do I remember? I mean, this was over 40 years
Mm,
ago. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, what is Logan going to remember about me now? And it just brought up
oof.
all of this stuff. And I really don't have a lot of memories of the day to day with my mom. But what I do remember is how she made me feel
Mm,
and how impactful love is. And how even all those years ago, it's perfect that we call this Everyone Has a Love Story. Because I felt completely loved by that woman. I know that she waited until she was in her 30s to get married and have babies, which was unheard of way back then. She wanted to experience life. She was this vibrant, wonderful, vivacious, zany gal. And she was so happy that my brother and I came along. And she loved being a mom. And she had this way about her that she would literally light up the room.
Mm.
But I don't remember those moments. I remember the hard times when she was sick. I remember some of them, but I remember the feelings behind it. And she was sick for 9 years. And she kept on telling me, I'm going to fight until I know you know me. I want to
Wow.
know that you know me. And the last time she was in the hospital, she had cancer. And she had first breast cancer, and we were told that she would probably die. And I was 6 or 7 years old at the time. And we got used to that idea. And then she went into remission. And then she, for several years, and then she had bone cancer. And it was very clear she was going to die. Everybody knew it. We
Wow.
prepared ourselves. And then she didn't.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then the last time she had brain cancer. And it had spread to her brain. And it was time.
Yeah.
And she, the night before she died, she took off this necklace that she always wore. And she gave it to me and she said, put it on. And I said, I'll keep it safe. I'll give it back to you. And she said, no. This is for when it doesn't feel real. That's your, and she was giving me a touchstone, like just hold on to it. And I still have it. And it was one of those, we are two human beings. We're not a mother and a child. We're two human beings who are going through something so real. And it was a quiet moment between us. And it was an incredible gift, an incredible gift. And the next day, she slipped into a coma, and the doctors asked if we were ready to say goodbye and for them to take her off life support. And no one moved. No one said anything. Even though this had been 9 years in the making, it was that moment. And I just remember, I don't know if I said it to my brother or to my dad, she's ready.
Oh, wow. You said that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, you're such a wise soul. Anybody who knows you, you're such a wise soul. But for you to, in that moment, be that aware of life and the finality of it.
It was
Wow.
clear. It was, thank you. It was too much for a 15-year-old to bear.
Yep.
But I was there, and I was there with her. And I watched her in peace.
Yeah. There's a couple things that you've said that I want to just unpack, but first I want to recognize, I mean, one of the things that's bonded us together is I lost my mom when I was 12. My mom got sick as well when I was 6. But my parents chose to not acknowledge this as something that would be life-ending. So I didn't have for a day thinking that my mom was going to die. I can't imagine being that age and being told that my mom was going to die and then being given that hope and then feeling it was, tell me, like, did you go through a phase of kind of being angry about that or no?
Furious.
Yeah.
I was in emotional whiplash.
Yep.
But I didn't know it at the time because this was our normal. It wasn't until I was an adult and went through tons and tons and tons of therapy and worked with other people who had lost their parents that I realized this was way too much. They went on the other side of the spectrum. I'm not angry with them about it. There is no right way. I mean,
Right.
really, there is no right way. But yes, I was very, I felt like I had to become this solid, grounded person in this experience. It was easier on people if I was calm, if I was collected, if I had all my ducks in a row. Oh my gosh, I remember, I just had this flash. I was maybe 16. So for those of you who don't know, 11 months later, our dad died, which was, I mean, come on.
I mean, come on.
It's nuts. And I was in a high school class, and our teacher was talking about the Carl Jung quote, what is it? Oh, the greatest burden a child can bear is the unlived life of a parent. And she stopped in the class, and she just like, I could just, her face went white, and she just moved on. And after the class, she came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I am so, so sorry." And it was that moment that trigger in me switched of, I am not going to be othered.
Woo!
Because like the whole class turned around and looked at me, and she's like, "I realize you're never going to have that experience of having your parents need you to fulfill something for them." And we've joked about it over the years that I became this hyperachiever in terms of adventure and experiences. And I think it was because of that quote. I got the whole quote wrong and misinterpreted it completely, but it worked to my advantage where I just went for it.
Yep.
You know, I just kind of dove into life. But part of that was also thinking I probably didn't have that long to live, because that's what I knew.
And that's a very real feeling.
Right.
I mean, it's very normal.
Right. So, here I am all these years later going, okay, I passed the milestone of being 52, which was the age of when my mom died. And now the big milestone is my son is 15, the same age I was when my mom died. So I have there's a little bit of me, I will admit it, that I'm holding on. Like, I want to make sure I'm here at least through 16, which is crazy. I'm totally healthy. Everything's fine. Yes, we're in a global pandemic, but I'm fine. But it's still, I know I'm going to have that feeling of, oh my gosh, okay, I made it.
Yeah, you did.
Mm-hmm.
But you already have. I mean, I think part of that quote, which is, I've never heard that quote before, and it's super powerful. But part of that too is you talked about your necklace and, mother, daughter, but two humans, right? And I think part of what you end up going on in this grief journey over time, right? A lot of people want this grief journey to be done in like 6 weeks, and we know that that's just not real.
Right.
But part of what happens, or I have found to happen over time, is you can start to separate the loss. It's a loss of a relationship, but you are having your own human experience,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and I've come to think of those milestones, because we do make those milestones, but I've come to think of them as, like, to your point, like, they're just little reminders that, that this life that we're living comes from another life. And I think your connection emotionally to your mom at this moment of time is so profound and very inspirational. Like, I want people to grab the inspiration from it, because again, we try to get over grief so fast, and when we grow through it, it's a feeling. And if you don't mind, I mean, you shared with me earlier that you had this 15th birthday party with Logan last night.
Yeah.
I want you to give those emotions some names, some words, like, what was that?
So we had his birthday was a couple of weeks ago, but we had this moment last night where he had some of his buddies over that's in his like little safety pod. And it was a celebration of just our community and being together. And we came together in such a joyful, sweet, loving, human way. And it was our connection. And we have this very interesting relationship that I feel is similar to the relationship I have with my mom, where we're in each other's hearts so fully, and we lock eyes and we just giggle together. And what I felt like was, I'm so sad my mom missed this.
Mm.
My level of compassion, not only her grandchildren, but that she missed this experience with myself and my brother, that she didn't get to see us in this way because she was so busy trying to live.
Mm.
And then the idea of her having to say goodbye. I have a whole different level of compassion. My dad, he died instantaneously. He had a heart attack. He had no idea he was going. Well, he might have, but that's a whole metaphysical conversation. But to know that you're going, similar to your mom, and to have to say goodbye to your child and know that you're going to miss this. And I just sat back and I got really emotional and just thought, Mom, I'm so sorry you missed this. And I hope you can feel us, and I hope you can see how happy I am and what a great kid I have. Oh.
And how filled with love you are. I mean, you really are one of the most giving and loving people I've ever had it, come across my path. That is for sure. So I think, let's give props to Selma for,
Yes.
for that foundation. Because I mean, and I can relate to so much of your story. I felt as I've gotten older, it's been, my loss has been less about me and more about her, more
Yeah.
about, gosh, I can't imagine, as you said, fighting for your life. I mean, they had cancer. They probably felt like crap,
Oh,
half the time. And their power was just that they wanted to have every day that they could with, with their kids. And it's remarkable. And I know we both honor our moms in that way.
oh,
Uh, so I do want to talk a little bit about you becoming a mom
mhm.
and, your journey from, well, let me ask this question first. It sounds like it's pretty early on that you became aware of your grief. I mean, was this the environment that you were brought up in? Now I actually understand it a little bit more because you were told.
Right.
But when did you really become aware of, okay, I may be feeling some more intense things than my peers?
Right.
When did that happen? Because I always find that is a fascinating point in our lives.
I had an opportunity. I call it a God shot. I don't even know what else to call it. But I was asked by one of the high school counselors to come and speak to a group of psychology students they were just studying death and dying, and they wanted to talk to some people who had experienced loss. And the only rule we had was that I could cut off the questions, but everything else was available. And I would be available to answer any questions. And what I realized in that experience was I was okay with the depth of the questions and the amount of pain that the questions brought up.
Mm.
But walking back into my own life, whether it was my house or school or my job, and not being able to talk about it or express it was not okay. And then I started looking around.
Mm.
And I realized I have very little in common, even though I had brushed it off because I didn't want to be that kid who had the
Othered.
dying mom. Yeah, the other. But that brought it to a totally different level, that I knew I had to find my people and I had to find a place. And then very quickly, this group of people, this group of psychology students, they brought me in more and more. And then they started connecting me with other kids who had gone through the same thing. And we had gone to my parents were very progressive. They sent us to this place. Well, they brought us to the Center of the Healing Arts, which is a place in California for other families who had someone who was dying. And so everybody worked on the emotional part of being in a family such as ours. But then after the person passed, there was no community.
Yeah.
It was like, they came to the funeral and that was it. And it was great for the person who was leaving, but for the family, it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And so I started working with other teens. It wasn't work. It was just, we became a community. And then one person after another. And I did a lot of my own work, and I did a lot of workshops and journaling and traveled around the world and learned about rituals and so many different ways to deal with grief and loss and the ritual of mourning. But it really wasn't until Jack died that I had to reassess everything I had been doing, because I put everything in this nice, neat little package of serenity and meditation and yoga and, clean eating. And I was like, look at me, I'm doing great. And then my child died, and I could not cope. And I had to redo all of what I believed was the right way to go about it, because suddenly I couldn't sit down and meditate. I couldn't have a conversation. I couldn't go to the grocery store. My grief was at such a level that, it's one thing to lose your parents. It's horrible. But then when this happened 25 years later, I was not equipped. I literally had to change. And I will tell you this, what we're doing with Talk About Loss right now could not have happened if it weren't for my tribe of people. My girlfriends, a couple of them are on right now. Charlotte, Hillary, Jane, Nicole, Melissa, this group of women who came to me and said, we're not afraid of your pain. Do your work. We've got you. We're not going to let you, slide away. They were afraid I was going to kill myself. That is for sure. But they loved me through it and gave me the ability to say anything I needed to say. I didn't have to sugarcoat it. I didn't have to be fine for them. And I had to tell a lot of people, you know what, I can't be here for you right now, because that had been my MO, being there for everybody. And I just had to be there for me and go really deep, really fast into this grief. Because 9 weeks later, 10 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant with Logan. I had no idea. And I had no choice but to go really, to go inward in order to save my own life and save my child, my unborn child's life. It was just a lot to unpack. And there's been, it wasn't until Logan was 3 that I was able to go back into really, really deep therapy and deal with it and do that healing, because it was very hard to welcome this new life in and mourn my son and reconcile anything that had been left over from my parents. It was just, I had to compartmentalize it and, just be in the moment. It was like a 9-month, seriously, it was like a 9-month walking meditation to keep myself from going crazy when I was pregnant with Logan.
Yeah. And
then he was born totally healthy and fine. And then the real work began,
And that, I think one of the things that you said that is so important for, I think it translates into the work we're doing, is you felt like you had to compartmentalize it, really, rather than somebody saying you can feel all those things at once and that's normal. I think we tend to not, we tend to think that we can sort through emotions. Are one thing that we actually can't, they're just never linear. And I think we want everything to be the West is like, we want things to be linear. We want things to fit into a package in a compartment. I cannot imagine losing a child. I think it's somebody that just sits across from you and respects the heck out of you and adores you. You have literally climbed mountains that I think are, rare in this lifetime. And talk to me about how that, when you did start going back into the work, what was that like and what surprised you? So when you finally were able to say, okay, I know there's still work to be done. So first of all, kudos for you for that, because a lot of people don't even say that. But when you said, okay, there's still work to be done, tell me about that time, because the reason I want this to be important to the people that are joining us is because sometimes that we think that grief happens and then we can process it and get through it, and then we don't recognize that grief may happen again, and that triggers, right? So it starts to become what we call compounded grief. So I think, Elizabeth, like, you're the perfect person to ask that question to. What started to come up when you went and did that work?
Anger.
Mm.
Anger. I thought I was going in to have the biggest cry of my life. And what I came out with, and it's really hard to admit because nobody wants to admit they're angry with a baby. And I was so mad at Jack. I was so mad at him for dying and for leaving me. And I was mad at God, and I was mad at the universe. And I thought, I can't be this like loading dock for death. I don't want this. I was like the healthiest mom. I was so physically fit. Everything was fine. Like, why? And I had to go back to the basics of sometimes really horrible things happen. Sometimes medically horrible things happen and I'm powerless. But I had a choice on how I was going to live my life. And I had a choice on who I was going to be with and what I wanted to walk with. And it was very clear I had to go so deep in love. It had to be about love. It had to be about how much I adored this little teeny boy who died and how much I could see him in everyone. And it was either going dark or going into love.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no, when it's that dim and when it's that painful, I could have gone very dark. I do believe that being pregnant with Logan probably saved my life, because I could have gone very dark and just tuned out and just been done with it. And there was a period of time when I was very mad that I couldn't kill myself. That I didn't feel like I had that luxury, and I was really resentful that I didn't have that luxury. And it's not a pretty thing. People don't want to hear about it, but that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like everyone was waiting for me to do something horrible, and they were terrified for me, and I didn't want to let them down, and I was so mad about that. And at the end of the day, I realized impertinence is what's going to keep me grounded, what's going to keep me real, what's going to keep me grateful, and that it is everything that I do on a daily basis. My sanity is dose dependent. I had never known that more clearly. That means I have to be in gratitude every day. I have to meditate or pray or get real or be honest every day. I'm one of those people where I cannot afford that gray area of being sloppy with my emotional wellness, because I unravel very quickly. So I probably do a lot more.
It's real.
I've had some people say, oh my God, the amount of your the self-work you have to do to maintain. I'm like, yeah, it's maintenance. Because I know myself. I know that I cannot get to the point of darkness unless I'm really willing to go in there and go, hey, what are you feeling dark about? What is this really? And then I have to face those fears. And really, it's very confrontational. It's very honest. But I will tell you this. The 10 minutes I spend getting confrontational with myself about what's really going on, I'm able to let it go and have a very joyful existence. It's not like I'm walking around dark all the time and, in this somber place. I can let it go and move on. And that's the gift.
Oof. Yes, that is the gift. And I think you've helped me through some of that. Like there have been times when I have been paralyzed, and those exercises are very, very real. And I want to, one, I want to first ask before we move into this work and talk about loss. It is, it on the heels of his 16th birthday. Let's talk a little bit about Jack. Let's talk a little bit about what those emotions are, and how you're feeling going into tomorrow.
I'm sad.
Yeah.
I will tell you that little boy is with me a lot. It returned me back to a spirit and to a connection. I feel like sometimes when I'm writing, he comes through. There are moments when when Logan will look at me and just, I just feel like I'm watching both of them.
Mm.
My heart is very full. That place that was broken inside of me is so full of that little love bucket that I work very hard at being able to access that amount of love, because the alternative is awful. But the duality of life, being able to say, I hate what happened to my son and how much pain he was in. And I'm so grateful that I could be there for other parents. And that other parents, knowing that their fear and their pain does not scare me, and that I could be there for them. We're just walking each other home. That's what we're doing. Every time a parent calls, and there are times still when my OBGYN from California, he'll send somebody, a patient of his, to me and just say, listen, I've got this person, this mom, this dad, and can you be there? And we'll get on the phone, and sometimes I'm just listening. And sometimes we're doing the work. And so a lot of the times it's creating a ritual for them and helping them create something that means something to them, not what culture tells them they should be doing. And it's just that we're all in it together. That's what all of this is about. If we can all harness our connection through loss, what a powerful world we would have.
And I want to say something to you right now, because it's, to me, the biggest gift you've given me. And that is to watch and witness somebody who has had such loss and is still able to love like you love. And that comes from a very real challenging place for me, right? I mean, I it's not about comparison, but I feel like a big part of my journey over time, I will admit over time, has been the ability to open my heart up again, which is very fear-based and, not what I want for myself, but it is also very real. And you are such a gem walking this earth, this diamond and you just said it. I had never heard you say it that way, but you had to choose love. You had to go deep into love, and you walk in that every day. And I think as I celebrate Jack's Sweet 16, it's that, because I've rarely have met somebody who just has had and had to bear so much grief, but chooses not only to just find healing and love for themselves, but open their heart up to love and to teach love and to walk with others in that. I really want to praise you for that. And I want to thank you for that. And you probably don't give yourself enough credit for that. So
well,
I'm giving you credit now.
Thank you. But it's also so self-serving, because honestly, it is to fall in love with people every day. Whether it's someone in the grocery store, whether it's somebody I'm working with, but to look at them and know that there's that part of their heart that is scared and bruised and yearning for somebody to look them in the eye and smile, and just, I'm not going to walk around in the grocery store and saying, hey, Joe,
it'd be okay if you did. The world needs it. The world needs it. It would be okay.
Yeah, there you go. Or I'd be locked up. But to feel that, it makes me feel good. And it's not like this endorphin rush or anything like that. It's just, I know this is right. I know that I can look at you, and Kate, you are just a marvel to me. I've loved you since the day I met you. And I told you from the day I met you, you're mine, girl. I got you.
You have.
but I wouldn't do it any other way. And it also allows me to have those big feelings of emotion. It also lets me go into the dark, dark places and know it's temporary. So those moments when I'm afraid of letting someone in or of loving, just like life, just like grief, those feelings are going to change. It's not that they're not hard. It's not that they're not real, but our emotions are always going to be different. Sometimes it's 10 minutes later or 10 days later. But knowing it's not always going to feel this bad or this hard. And so when I was going through the waves of pain with Jack, like literally my body was just, my body completely fell apart. And I had to become friends with my nervous system very quickly. And so you know me, I go very analytical very quickly. And I looked up everything there is to know about the way the brain functions and your nervous system functions. And the bottom line was those emotions changed, nothing lasts. In 10 minutes, I was able to breathe. And then, maybe an hour later, another panic attack came up and tears and tears and tears. But knowing that it was going to change allowed me to go in it fully and not hold back. And those moments that, as a kid, what made me stop crying all those years, I used to tell my friend Hillary that I used to pinch my finger really hard. I'd be like this, and I had a dent on my pointer finger from pinching it to make me stop crying, because I didn't want to walk around crying, because I thought if I started crying, I wasn't going to stop. So when Jack died, I just didn't stop myself from crying, and I stopped. It would start up again, and I had a good old big ugly cry this afternoon, and then it stops, and I put on my mascara. I was okay.
Yeah. I wish I had gotten that message a lot earlier in my life, that sadness was not the enemy. That sadness was not the to not, have to feel like it was the thing that I actually love that you use this word othered. Now as I'm older, I realize no, like sadness is our biggest indicator that joy, that that joy is still there for us. I think the minute that we become numb to those feelings is the minute that, we're no longer on this human journey.
Right.
But we talk about this a lot with, in our talk about loss conversations, that I think, unfortunately, we live in a world that tells us that there's only one group of feelings that we're really incentivized to feel and to be with and to be aware of. But the other ones, they're still there. It's biological. Like, we can't get rid of them, so where do they go? If we're not getting them out, if we're not expressing them, where do they go? And having people,
depression and anxiety,
yep,
and alcoholism, that's where they go.
Yep, it is. And so we're now on this crusade. I like expression, not suppression.
Yes.
And we came together a year ago. I mean, it probably was a year ago that you reached out. And I want to ask this question to you, because I feel like a lot of people, I've told, my story of doing this work a lot. But for you, having had this journey and experience, what was it about a year ago that made you say, I really want to lead in this, right? Because when you came to me, it was, we weren't going to just write a op-ed. We weren't just going to have this, periodic moment around what was happening in the world with COVID. You really came like, I need to do something here. I need to lead here. And, that became Talk About Loss. But I want to hear from you. What was it that made you feel like, okay, I need to lead around this?
A great question. It was, we're used to being like at this level when it comes to our emotions, because we're used to talking about pain and grief and missing. And suddenly the world was at the same level. And the playing field, everyone seemed to be on the same vibrational level. And I just saw everybody flipping out and scrambling, and they were losing, in our work, it's so much about the death loss, but people were losing loss of normalcy, of certainty, of their jobs, financial security. their image of their future. And I was watching people in my life just unravel, and you saw it all over the news, and it was like, wow, this loss, even though there's obviously different types of loss and losing, I'm not going to compare losing a job to losing a spouse, but there's different degrees. But if we can all connect in the feelings and be real about what we're experiencing right now, then we're addressing that sad, sad elephant in the room. And being connected in that way, we know from this work, your life expands. It becomes richer. You become more invested in humanity. And I just thought this is an incredible time for us to talk. Now that we've got, everybody's on the same level, everyone's experiencing loss in some way, let's be with them. We know this. We know this work. We know they're going to be okay. And it wasn't that I think we have the answers or that there are any answers. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But to know, to eliminate the isolation and the loneliness associated with life-changing events was a game changer for me. And I felt like if we can band together and give this to other people, whether it's in, you know, in organizations or in communities or in your home, to be able to openly say, I'm scared, and acknowledge it. And we talk about this a lot, that, you know, there's two people having these conversations and they don't really intersect because they're not sharing them, because they're trying to be okay. You know,
They're like, they're having a conversation over here, and it's like, nope, you're actually supposed to be talking together in this moment.
right. I mean, I'm, you know, talking to organizations who, you know, 80% of their workforce, their colleagues have been laid off because of COVID. But no one inside the organization is talking about how crazy it is to walk into the office and see Pam and Joe and Eric and, you know, all these offices that are empty and no one's addressing it. But once they do, when we come together with them and give them these opportunities to talk about, these are real feelings, these are real fears, and there's nothing to do or change or fix, but people are connected again in a sense of community that is a game changer.
Yep.
And productivity comes back, and honesty and community.
And connection and authenticity. I mean, that's been my whole thing. It's like, we've used all these words before. I mean, we've been introduced to vulnerability in the workplace and connection and community, but do we really know what brings us to that moment? You know, are we really willing to talk about what brings us to that moment? What makes us comfortable in vulnerability, right? And it's, for me, it's always been connected to loss. And but we've to use your words, the elephant in the room. And you know, I've been an advocate, you know, with kids, and I think when you reached out a year ago, it was just a light bulb moment, because I think what you were feeling and then what I was feeling was, if we don't do this now, we're going to have the real crisis on our hands. You know, and I think on the heels of now people starting to feel like the world is going to open up again, I think we need to be ready for what we're going to be moving, how we're going to be moving, and what we're going to see when we move. And I know that's a big, you know, a big a goal for us in this work. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this upcoming thing, because this is also kind of a little celebration. Yeah. So we've been working on Talk About Loss for about a year. And like any startup, it's been a startup, right? Like, if I could giggle for one moment, it was, you know, I think we also realized, like, there's not a lot of people that want to talk about loss.
Well, first of all, I do want to say,
go for it.
I want to ask you, what made you say yes? Because I sent Caden a message on Instagram and said, hey, are you thinking about getting back into the grief arena? What in God's name made you say, yeah, I want to do this again?
Well, I've periodically been, you know, asked for, always been kind of asked to come and talk. And, you know, I just done a TED Talk,
right?
A TEDx talk about reframing grief. And I knew, I mean, quite honestly, I knew something was still in me with adults. I think there was still something in my evolving journey that I wanted to do more work with my peers, and I didn't know what that looked like. And when COVID hit, I mean, I don't know how this may sound kind of sick, but I was like, I've been trying to push a boulder up a mountain to get people to understand how important grief is and how much it shapes our lives. And it's been hard. I mean, Kate's Club's been around for almost 20 years, and it's been very like counter culture. And I've just found that absurd. But I felt like finally there was this opening of what, like, okay, now people aren't going to be able to not face this. I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I first started Kate's Club and was trying to get supporters and volunteers, somebody had sent me an email that said, this sounds like a noble idea, but are there really enough kids who need Kate's Club? I know. So for those who don't know, Kate's Club is an organization here in Atlanta, Georgia, that works with children 5 to 18 who've lost a parent or a sibling. And we're a community. We're everything that you can reimagine for grief for young people. And it's a beautiful, magical place.
It's an amazing place.
And I want that now for adults. I mean, that's what this all is about. It's like, I want this for adults now. It's not too late. We can still learn how to do this. Whether you lost somebody 30 years ago or just in the past year, it doesn't matter. We have to start acknowledging the impact that loss has on our lives. And when you sent me that note, it was, I just didn't know how it was going to manifest. And when you sent that note, I just had a response that was like, this is it. I don't need to go this road alone. Meaning when I started Kate's Club, I did that. I was like, I don't need to go this alone. We're the perfect complement for each other. Even though sometimes that's like, I'm the creative one, like crazy off in La La Land one, and you're no, Kate, come back, get organized. But that's just beautiful. How rare do you get that partnership in starting business? Right. I mean, seriously, like, and it's a platform, it's a community, but we're starting a business, and it's so needed right now. And it's been such a joy. I continue to learn. I don't do this work because I'm a master of it. I do this work because I'm a seeker, and I continue to learn. But I think for me, I've always learned from other people. And so I'd much rather be in community, even when I'm supposedly leading. And I think that's why that was a really long answer. But I think, so I think we've learned a lot in this past year. We've learned a lot how to meet people where they're at. If I can call just you out on one thing, I remember at the very beginning, you were like, okay, I'll do this, but like, I don't want to be up front. Like,
oh no,
you're going to be on camera. You're going to do the talk. Like, I don't want to be up front. And I was like, no, this is your chance. You need to lead, and this is your chance to get there. And that's what you've done. So maybe speak a little bit to that. What has that felt like? Because you've been the operator for a lot of people.
Yeah, my idea was I was going to come in and produce this. And produce
yeah.
Kate and be in the back, because that's what I do for a living. And Kate said, no, not going to happen. You're going to be up front and center with me. And it confronted all of my fears, all of my imposter syndrome stuff, all of it. And all I kept on thinking of was, I trust Kate. She said, she's right behind me. I don't think this is a mistake. And it's more important to say yes. It's more important to say yes. And so I'm glad we're doing this work. I adore you. I'm thrilled that we're getting this opportunity to be on the Wisdom 2.0 stage. So
talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Great segue.
So Wisdom 2.0, it's an incredible conference. It's next Friday and Saturday. I've been part of this conference for the last 4 years, but as a participant. And now Kate and I are going to be on the People's stage. We were voted onto the People's stage. And it didn't occur to me that we would actually get in, because we started talking about loss because nobody wanted to talk about loss. And now suddenly people are saying, oh yeah, we want to talk about this. So we're going to be on the stage Saturday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll put it in the link if you want to get tickets to this conference, but it's literally the leaders of today talking about mindfulness in business, how to be real in this tech world, how to reach people in the way that your heart knows is the right way to do it. The speaker lineup is phenomenal. All of the thought leaders that I'm passionate about, lots of the faculty, I'm in an inner MBA program, which is teaching mindfulness for business. Many of them have been asked to come and speak. So it's a real honor.
It is. And it's going to be a big moment for us. I'm glad we went for it. We did. We were just well, let's just go. This is a huge global stage,
yes.
With some of the biggest thought leaders around mindfulness and mental wellness, emotional wellness. And I think it speaks a lot to what people are ready for.
Yeah.
I'm just super proud of us. We saw this, all happening, and we've stuck with it, and we're just in a lot, kind of just beginning, but yeah, I think it'll be great.
You know what, Kate? I'm going to be doing this. There's a part of me that is very nervous about doing it, but I'm also very excited, and I know that how my body reacts to nerves and anxiety and excitement is the same. So it's reframing it in my brain. But talking to you now, what I realize is I need to bring my mom in. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for my sweet mom.
And that you have,
oh my God,
like, we have nothing to prove, like, we're just going to be two people out in the world sharing our knowledge. And, I'll tell you this, I'll give you this one little piece of advice, because somebody said this to me when I was, really early on and starting to do a lot of my speaking. And they said, Kate, it'll be as big as it needs to be. If one person hears you in that crowd and you're speaking right to them, that's all that matters. There's nothing that's going to be lost from this moment. There's no way that you can show up that is going to take anything away from this moment. It's all a value add. It's all a value add. So we just need to go and have it be a value add for us too. We're growing and learning and all of this as well. But when they said that to me, it took a lot of the pressure off. That if it's one person, it's one person more that you helped in this life and in this journey.
Right.
So you're going to be fantastic. We're going to be fantastic.
And our moms are going to be proud. Well, they already are.
So just for people who at the end, in case you missed the beginning, I'm going to show my shirt again, even though it's backwards. I wore this shirt. It's a new shirt, but it's for Elizabeth and I. It says, my mom was everything and then some.
Amen.
Well, it's like a shirt. Sorry, I just showed my. But anyway, so any last thoughts or?
Oh, I think yes, I love you, and I think we need to continue going out in the world, and if we can reach one person who is grieving and help them connect with the people that love them, when the next person passes, it's going to carry on this chain of love, this chain of understanding, and that's how we're going to change the culture, one heart at a time. And for all of us doing the work out in the world with different platforms, there's something for everybody. And so I think that, we have the opportunity to just stand there and say, you know what, this is hard work, but you don't have to do it alone. You don't. Amen. You're not supposed to.
Marla said it best. Amen.
Amen, Marla. Oh my gosh. Love you, girl.
Yeah. Love you too. Thank you so much for this. This was very special. And thank you for jumping in the hot seat.
Anytime.
And yes, we'll post this and we'll post the link. The Wisdom 2.0 conference is happening this weekend. Tickets are still on sale. I'm telling you, the lineup is sick. It's so good. And we hope you'll join us. Yeah, for the next person, our next guest, and our next Everyone Has a Love Story. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday evening, and be well.